One of the things that I've found it's very important to focus on to overcome future issues is to be able to communicate our culture and values, was something we were talking about. It's never easy to help candidates to project themselves inside the organization, but it's also important to help employees to stay connected with the local company culture.
Welcome to the All in Recruitment podcast by Manatal, where we explore best practices, learnings, and trends with leaders in the recruitment space. If you like our content, please subscribe to our channels on YouTube and Spotify to stay tuned for our weekly episodes. My name is Lydia, and joining us today is Marta Capossele of MotorK. Welcome to the show, Marta. Good to have you with us today.
Hi, Lydia. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
So, Marta, tell us a little bit about your background. What really drives your passion for the talent space?
Well, of course, at the beginning, when I started to get interested in these topics and to, of course, develop my career, I was very interested about the possibility to have an impact on organizations, to help them to build stronger teams. Of course, developing practices of talent management and share company culture. Then when I got more aware of my impact in the organization, I started to get more and more interested in topics related to diversity and inclusion. And so the possibility to also build a more inclusive and diverse workspace through, of course, recruitment practices, because if we start from companies, then we can expand it or even outside.
So now at MotorK, you are the head of talent acquisition and employer branding. And I noticed that to be at MotorK, you need to be a sparker, right? So what does it mean to be a sparker, and how do you communicate this cultural identity, so to speak, in your recruitment process?
So being a sparker first means to be part of a digital revolution that we are pursuing. It means being an active agent of change, having an impact, of course, on our clients, interact with them, helping them through their digital changes, and of course to reach their results with our solutions. But it also means to be part of an incredible group of talented professionals that are very committed towards a common result. As you say, this is the core of our culture, and it's something that we really try to communicate to candidates from the very beginning. So through the first messages, of course, we dedicate a lot of time in the first HR interviews when we are talking with the people to explain them what Sparker is and how does it look like. We have also created a very cool brochure together with our brand and marketing team that we send to candidates even before the recruitment process, so they can have some insights and get prepared about it.
What does it actually mean to be a Sparker then? What is the cultural identity then?
It means that when you are inside MotorK, you work for the digital evolution that we are proposing to our clients and to our partners, take into consideration that MotorK provides digital solution in a still very traditional environment, which is the mobility world. So being a sparker today means embodying these two souls, we can say. So on one hand, the understanding on how the mobility world it's important and is evolving. And on the other side, how new practices, new ideas, digital solutions can have an impact on it. We talk about digital revolution in many fields, but mobility, it's still evolving in a sense. So it's looking forward, probably is the word that better describes being a sparker today.
And I understand that one of your core areas of focus, or something that you are very passionate about, is actually social recruiting, right? And social media platforms have been constantly evolving, and they've introduced new and newer features, as and when we look at them, right? There's a new rollout and there are new ways to use it. So which social media platforms have you found to be most effective for social recruiting, and why?
Well, on this, I have to say my first call is probably very traditional somehow in terms of social recruiting platform. We're working a lot with LinkedIn for sure, not only because we have access to a huge talent pool, of course, but also because through LinkedIn we can spread some very powerful messages and we can get closer to people that are interested in us. Since we are a company that is focusing more and more on employee branding, we are still a young company, so there are things that we are building and developing. Instagram is becoming more and more important. It's part of our 2023 strategy to become more visible. This is because, of course, through Instagram, we want to showcase employee stories. We want to be more accessible in terms of direct, immediate contents and to build a stronger employee branding.
Do you find an audience difference, though, between the two? Is there a particular goal set for Instagram, or is it at this point you mentioned that you're building a culture, an employer brand, right? So is there a particular goal set to Instagram at this point?
Well, for sure, the challenge that a lot of companies are having nowadays is to reach younger generations. So Instagram is the first step. Then, of course, we want to explore other channels. We are also analyzing if it's relevant for us to be on TikTok. But the idea on Instagram is to give easy to access contents for young generation, young talents that we are indeed, of course, targeting to build our internal talent pool. I mean, we don't only want to onboard very senior professionals, which is something that we are doing on LinkedIn with very specific industry-focused contents. But on Instagram, we want to have a fresher communication and more immediate for young generations.
So what might be some best practices you've used or in your experience that you've seen has worked in terms of social recruiting?
I have to say I'm a big fan of referral programs. I think this is one of the most important things that every company should have. So it was one of the first things I approached when I joined MotorK. So we reshape a little bit our internal referral program. We gamified it a little bit. We changed the incentive to give it more. The point is always to give more visibility, to create more engagement. And it's something that is working a lot. I have to say it's our second source of hiring so far, which give us a huge expectation for the future. I'm working a lot with our brand and communication team to build more and to leverage more employee advocacy program. So we want to incentivate, and we're incentivizing our employees to share jobs offer, to share opportunities, but also company updates. On this, we are working a lot with our sparkers, indeed. And then we engage with industry communities a lot. Either if we talk about digital automotive mobility world or tech communities, because of course we have a huge R&D department, of course, which is a strong target for us. We do it not only participating to events or communicating through social media platforms, but also hosting events dedicated to them. In Italy, we organized some other activities for the WordPress community last year. So everything that helps us to get closer to our target communities and to become visible with them, it's something that we are pursuing a lot.
So these events, are they virtual or are they on-site?
Both. So we have some virtual events. MotorK organized one of the biggest European events for the digital automotive world, which is Automotive I/O. It took place in spring. So this is completely virtual with speakers from all around the globe, and we involve worldwide community. But we also love to organize in-presence events. We have a huge office in Milan that we are, of course, using a lot for this purpose. So the next one will be in presence. Beginning of July, we're going to have a hackathon for internal employees. So it's a mix. It's always a mix, I think.
And so the talent strategy sort of hinges on every kind of business event that you would have out there. So it's a form of communicating your cultural identity or your EVP through these events that that are taking place.
Indeed, of course. The point is to convey our EVP message through the events, to stay consistent with what we want to communicate, of course.
And what are some challenges you face in attracting talent and then obviously retaining them? And how have you worked to overcome them?
Well, I think we are facing common challenges like many other companies. One of the things that I've found it's very important to focus on to overcome future issues is to be able to communicate our culture and values, was something we were talking about. It's never easy to help candidates to project themselves inside the organization, but it's also important to help employees to stay connected with the local company culture. So we are working on how to enhance the employer brand, to make it visible and accessible externally. Again, showcasing companies' stories, employee stories, success stories, and again, at the same time, helping employees to be a part of it directly. Another important thing, I think, will be to offer continuous development and growth plans to people that are approaching the organization, but also to employees that are with us since a long time. We invest a lot in training programs. As I said, we organize conferences, events. We give budget to our employees to take time to participate. We offer language courses, so to fill the gap that future employees or current employees might have, for sure. And then we try to maintain a high sense of involvement and high motivation through many different talent management practices. For sure, we have annual performance evaluation. That it's something that even employees are appreciating, but also candidates when are approaching MotorK are asking a lot.
They're asking a lot.
So it's a mix.
And, when you speak about EVP being so critical right now, especially when you're going out there and putting the company's employer brand on display. So what are some steps to take to develop a strong EVP so that you make sure that your talent strategies, both for skill and for culture, are aligned?
Good question. I think that, and it's something that we are working on more and more. The first point when talking about an EVP that has been already, of course, developed and launched is to involve employees. The EVP is something that is evolving. It's never static, especially for organizations like MotorK that are constantly and quickly growing. So the involvement of employees is something that help the organization to take the temperature of what is going on how the EVP is evolving. We do focus group. We have HR corners where they can communicate. We have recurrent annual surveys that, of course, we use to extract information and data and then to adapt our strategy and to adapt the EVP. So that's one of the first, I think, most important thing. Then the integration of the EVP all along the talent related strategy, it's very important to have a consistent message from the beginning. So when we approach candidates, when we put them in the recruitment funnel, when we recruit them concretely and we onboard, or the learning steps, we have very structured onboarding, of course, and then all along their life in the company. And the different moments that are related to people development in the organization should be consistent with the EVP we want to transfer.
So on that note, going back a little bit to something that you alluded to, using employee stories, right? Are there any processes in place where you harness the power of employee storytelling in order to build that brand? Do you have a particular process or a particular structure in place, or is it something that you do through the surveys that go out, or is it something that happens through the L&D events? How does that work?
We are working on it. It's spontaneous somehow. I mean, we also encourage employees to share their stories spontaneously, and that's something that they do a lot through feedbacks, through posts on different platforms. We are working on how to build a real storytelling culture in the organization. And I think the first important thing is to communicate to employees that they can share that they are listened, that we care about what they are sharing. And this is something that we're doing through different call to action internally. So to help them to understand that there is a space for them there. But this is not something that can be built from one day to another. So I think it's very important also to somehow give instruments, train employees on how storytelling has to be built, especially because, of course, it has to be coherent with what we want to communicate. We are also thinking about identifying some, how can I say, storytellers that are already natural born storytellers in the organization. And so to help them to coach other employees to get used to it, to get closer to this practice. So more concretely, just these days, we are thinking about a call to action that will help employees to become part of an activity that will use our channels, our visibility to empower actions and initiatives or causes that they are following externally. I mean, on top of their regular job, because our employees are, of course, embodying our value and culture, but at the same time, they have they're passionate about other things. So we want to give them the possibility to integrate these two things and become more and more visible and spread their ideas.
So moving to the EVP and social recruiting, a lot of it is very visible. It's almost like a brand exercise, right? Going out there and, keeping the message consistent, etc. So within your team, Marta, how do you build that consistency in terms of storytelling to candidates, especially from, recruiters who want to tell the stories in the company? If there's no structure, how do they do that with candidates?
Well, of course, we organize activities internally to be coherent. So first, we have built some guidelines. Of course, that it's the most important thing to follow a little bit to give a structure, especially at the beginning with some new activities. We work on building communication calendars that have a different focus on considering the different channels. So what we communicate on LinkedIn, what we communicate on Instagram, who is communicating what. So this is for sure something that is giving a track to the talent acquisition team first, that is first agent of this storytelling movement.
The first touch point, right?
Exactly. I mean, we have to give the example. We have to be ambassador of this. Then for all the other employees that are interested, of course, this is also spontaneous. We train them together with our brand and communication team, which of course has tools to it. If they are very interested, we have different training materials, online platforms, and usually what we do and what I've done in the past is to create some, let's say, ambassador group where we can have recurrent meetings, exchange feedback, exchange ideas so they can be part of it in a very constructive and proactive way. So bring their ideas on the table and build together the communication coherent with what from the top of the organization we want to communicate about.
Now, with the growing popularity of remote work and virtual interactions, really, how has social recruiting been impacted in your experience?
Well, I think this last, 3 years, COVID and after COVID have accelerated something that was already going on, let's say. For us, remote work is something that is very important because we are growing internationally very quick. So it's a topic that we constantly discuss about internally. I think social recruiting and related platforms are helping and help the organization a lot to access to a larger pool of talent. So we don't focus anymore on local candidates in the country or in the city or even just in Europe. I mean, we are recruiting talents from Argentina because they are willing to join us in Italy sometimes. So this is, of course, helping a lot of organizations to face the very famous talent shortage that sometimes we are experiencing, especially because we are a tech company. So this is very common. So this is one point. But on the other side, I think it helps a lot the organization to be understood better and deeper. So we can share more content. We can bring candidates in our organization through videos, picture, again, virtual events, even before they join. So virtual engagement, that's super important for us. We do it through the recruitment process. I mean, the majority of our steps are online. Then if possible, we invite them to our offices. We try to balance a little bit. We, of course, are participating to virtual events with universities, schools, and this, of course, help us to meet young talents that are located abroad. We are building, of course, our graduate internal program. So this is key. This is crucial for diversification also and inclusiveness. So yeah, this I think it's very important in terms of balancing remote approach to candidates and then get to know the company.
So it's interesting that you mentioned, going into the university side and building the talent pool or the pipeline from when they begin their careers, right? And then projecting that as a great place to work. So, talent leaders such as yourself also needs to look into these kinds of strategies so that you can not only fulfill business needs now, but also look into something that would fulfill them for the future. So, in addition to that, what might be some other ways to think about future-proofing recruitment?
On top of what we were saying, for us, it's very important to have a proactive and adaptive approach to new technologies because we are interested in people that are passionate about technology in general. And so our solutions, what we propose them, the project we propose them have to be attractive for them first. Then, of course, all the solutions that technology is bringing us to interact with employees, to interact with candidates will help probably to overcome future issues that we might have. And then, again, to explore how to take decisions that are more and more data driven. When we are approaching talent, it's not just saying, okay, we want to have team built that way with that type of profile, but it's also where is this type of profile? Where are they going? What are they interested in? How are they moving? What could attract them? And everything it's based on data and analysis concretely, because otherwise it's just pure luck.
Or pure assumptions, which is the last thing you want to do, right? But if it's informed decision making, then it definitely makes a difference in terms of historic data, analyzing what you can do in the future. So on that note, on being data driven, being analytical as a talent acquisition function, right? You've got all these AI technologies out there, AI solutions, automation specifically, that are transforming so many aspects of recruitment. So, in your experience, how do these technologies influence social recruiting? How does a data element come into play? So,
MotorK is also very into AI topics, and we are transferring this also into recruitment and talent practices. I still believe that it's important to find a balance between technology and human interaction, especially when we are talking about people meeting other people joining organizations, taking decisions that will impact their lives. This is the first thing that I still believe. But on top of it, there is no doubt that artificial intelligence is impacting a lot recruitment practices since long time now. There are some steps and areas that for sure can be completely modified by artificial intelligence solutions. That it's the part that is related to candidate sourcing for sure, that is already ongoing, screening candidates, matching sometimes for some specific profiles and skills. I still believe that there are some roles that are more functional that requires a little bit of different interpretation. But then artificial intelligence, I think, will also help us to have more comprehensive understanding of people when they are approaching the organization. So not just candidates with their CV, but human being in their whole environment. So everything they care about, how they spend their time outside the CV experiences. And so our ATS, for example, is already integrating in the candidate page the different social network and platforms candidates are in. And so we can get to know them as they get to know the organization 360, not just from a very work-related point of view.
We're seeing many trends in talent acquisition now. That also includes, rise in different kinds of forms of work, and also the need to build more connectivity, as you said. When virtual interactions are concerned, you've got to enhance the experience and make sure that it's memorable enough and be as human enough in that sense. So when you have a sort of fragmented workforce, the need to build more connectivity in that workforce comes in tandem with productivity, right? So, when you look out for top talent, what exactly do you search for? What kind of criteria makes a top talent?
The way of working has changed tremendously, and it will continue to change for sure. We're talking a lot about the fact that our job in 20 years will be completely different.
Yes.
Or won't exist anymore, who knows? So I think we don't talk anymore about skills or concrete skills to do the job. We're more talking about broad soft skills that are very important to develop and evolve inside the organization. For us specifically, going back on the Sparkers mentality and culture, it's very important to have people on board that are adaptable and flexible, which means that they are not afraid of embracing changes. They are very curious about innovation, because this is what we bring outside, and that's what we work every day on. So this is for sure one important thing, people that are not afraid on taking new challenges. Then going on the remote way of working, and the fact that maybe you have a colleague in another country and another one working on a different time zone, the very first thing that everyone has to have in common is the work ethic and cultural fit with what we are working on. If values are in common, this will evolve with the organization probably. The way of working will change, but people will stay coherent with their values, and this will bring connection and cohesion inside teams. Then skills can change, people can learn new things, we can help them to evolve in their role, but this is part of the DNA of the organization, and then people that will onboard.
So looking ahead, Marta, what kinds, or rather, what emerging trends do you foresee in social recruiting, or even, employer branding with the kind of data-driven recruitment perspective that you have now?
I'm a big fan of the impact that virtual reality and augmented reality can have in these processes. It's something that has already started to take place in many organizations, but I think there is a big room for improvement still. In organization can invest a lot in it. This is basically for two main reasons, I think. First, because through these solutions, we can help candidates to get to know the organization before. So to have virtual tours, for example, or to live one typical day, or to see how their job look like. I'm thinking about my organization, but imagine there are people that are doing jobs that requires physical presence, that can give them a real perception of how will their job look like. And on the onboarding, again, remote teams onboarding colleagues, this can help everyone to sit around the same table and live the experience in a different way. And this is so important for me, because first will reduce attrition on onboarding and will accelerate the ramp up time, but also can have an impact reducing turnover for all those cases where people join organization and they don't get where are they going, and they take this blind decision. So this can really help people to be more aware and the organization to become more understandable outside. This, I think, it's something very easy that can be done. Then, generally speaking, I think the challenge for organization is to stay up to date with the landscape that is evolving. This is possible, of course, with open eyes, open mind, listening to employees and candidates are, of course, bringing us a lot of ideas, and then foster a culture of innovation for sure. When someone is joining an organization, even if you try to have the best recruitment process, you put them in contact with all different colleagues, peers, and managers, there is always a risk that the person will join the organization with some misunderstanding, with some biases. When people are coming with different backgrounds, different cultures, we are growing a lot in new countries, so we are onboarding people with different experiences. So the onboarding has a natural time of evolution that bring people to become candidates, first day employees, and then sparkers. So these type of solutions can definitely give at least a different experience and accelerate this understanding, I think.
Yeah, that's great. I think it's more futuristic than you had imagined it to be, but so I think it's great. It's a trend that is foreseeable, at least, and something that can be done, in fact. And how do you present? I think virtually speaking, when you're big on remote hiring and you're looking at diversity, D&I, right? You've got so many of these cultures, as you said, coming in with the skills that you need. In the whole idea of bringing people with different backgrounds in is to enrich your internal culture and turn it into something that's very innovative, right? Thank you very much for your time and your insights. And I'm sure the audience listening in will want to know where to connect with you. So drop us your contact details.
Of course, I mean, everyone that is interested to get in contact with us, we have our official website that is MotorK.io, of course, our LinkedIn page, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, as we said. And then, of course, I will be more than happy to get in contact with everyone who wants to reach me on LinkedIn. My contacts are there, Marta Capossele at MotorK, and happy to connect.
Perfect. And we have been in conversation with Marta Capossele of MotorK. Thank you for joining us, and stay tuned for more weekly episodes from All in Recruitment.